Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon. And we got him back, and I'm pretty sure he's got Matvei Michkov in his luggage. It's Charlie O'Connor, Philadelphia's number one beat reporter. Had a nice little vacation, and you know, you're back. You can probably just take a couple more days off, Chuck.
So.
Nothing really has transpired. No one's lost their shit on Twitter over rumors.
No one. Not even one single person.
It's honestly very funny. Your first day of vacation, Bryn ran this poll. And will something major with the Flyers happen as Charlie is on? And 71% of respondents said, yes, something major will happen. And on, I guess, Thursday night before Friday's show, we got just a little Alexei Kolosov scare. And I was like, oh, of course, something happened right before Charlie gets back.
It was the hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah.
As someone who was recently in Paris, I'm going to go with the hors d'oeuvre.
Just a little thing.
The main course.
I was like, well, this is the thing that's going to happen then. And then Sunday, you're basically like in the air while this is happening on your way back from your European vacation. And it turns out, maybe, just maybe, Matvei Michkov is on his way, Charlie. Like, what? Of course. Like,
course.
I assume you have Wi-Fi on the plane.
No, well, so I did. So here was the thing. I did pay for Wi-Fi.
Okay.
But I knew that my laptop was going to have a limited amount of battery life. So I paid for Wi-Fi because it was a 7.5 hour flight. I was flying back from Barcelona, which is where I ended the trip, back to Philly. 7.5 hours. And I knew I didn't have enough battery life anyway to have me survive for an entire 7-hour trip. So I paid for a 2-hour Wi-Fi pass, got some draft research done, and then when my laptop was about to conk out, I closed it and then went back to listening to music and reading books and stuff. When I landed in Philly and then I got service back on my phone, that is when it hit me that after my Wi-Fi had run out and after my laptop had crapped out, that was when the Michkov stuff began to percolate through the Twitter sphere.
See, and that's absolutely. I sent a couple of tweets to Charlie, and I was like putting in our group message, like, listen, if anything happens, because obviously it's all rumor and innuendo, we have no idea what's going on.
Just we have some idea, but there's certainly nothing finalized.
There's no news, the headline can't be Michkov's here, you know?
Because he's not yet.
If it's like, all right, well, this is what's going on Twitter. I don't know if we need an emergency pod for, hey, man, this is what Kevin Kurz just tweeted. You know, maybe we should, just from a content point of view, but
people would have watched.
Yeah, what's that show actually going to be?
I would have been delirious.
Yes. So,
because I was running on jet lag, very little sleep.
With nothing actually happening, it was like, guess what? We got 5 shows next week.
This is true.
So here we are. It is just another Michkov Monday.
There we go.
I guess we need to lay out the timeline because everything sort of just seemed to happen out of nowhere on Sunday.
But it didn't.
But it actually, it seems as if it's been building really it's been building since the 2023 draft, but a month and a half?
I would say the last 3 weeks is when things really started going. So we have this timeline for those watching on YouTube, for those who are listening after the fact. Well, we'll just run through the timeline for you. But if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. I would say this really got kicked off into high gear on April 30th, which is when we had the report from Russian media, I believe it was MASH TV. Scott president Alexander Medvedev said he did not rule out the possibility of Michkov leaving to play for the Flyers as soon as next season, said the decision will be made by the end of June. Now, that was the first domino because that opened the door. We obviously talked about this quite a lot. What I had heard in the immediate aftermath of that report, once it became clear that it wasn't bullshit, that this was real, this wasn't just some fake report that got thrown out there. What I had heard was that this more likely meant that he was probably going to have to spend one more year with SKA, and then they were going to be able to work something out to get him out of the contract a year early. I believe Elliot Friedman today on 32 Thoughts, the podcast this morning, said something similar, said that that's more or less what he had heard, was that probably a year early, but he's probably not going to be able to get out of it this summer.
We talked about that on the show. Like, all right, this means if they're having the conversation now, we're probably opening the door for him to come early. We're not going to have to wait the 3 years. But it just seems like, like Scott hasn't played him. He's been on loan to Sochi, and they're at least going to try to get a year out of him, right? Like, that was kind of our that was kind of our conclusion.
That was my assumption. That was backed up by things I heard. That would just seem like the scuttlebutt in the hockey world. It's like, this opens the door for one more year, and then he's over. Then on May 7th, we get some fun Twitter stuff. We have Michkov. And normally, this would just be a fun little thing. But the fact that it happened a week after that initial report was big. We had on May 7th, Michkov post a video on Instagram doing his deadlift, working out with a Flyers workout shirt on. Twitter predictably lost its mind. And normally, I would laugh at it. But given what transpired on April 30th, it was notable. Like, the Inquirer literally published a story saying Michkov works out with a Flyer shirt on. And it is funny, but it was news. It was news. Had the April 30th thing not happened, it wouldn't have been news. But when it does, then everyone's looking for every little thing, and you made a conscious decision to post a video wearing a Flyers logo rather than your Russian team logo. It did send a message to everybody of where Michkov's intention was.
That's before the show when we're just going over how we're going to lay this all out. And I was like, my dream is the draft thing. You were like, you just want everything to be wrestling. And it's really like, I want everything to be as dramatic as possible. And it's like the April 30th, the interview is maybe just a little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing.
And then May 7th, working. That's as ridiculous as it is. He's just wearing a T-shirt. That's the inciting incident.
Yeah.
Like, that kicks this all off in full gear. Like, yo, it's actually a possibility, because we've been saying this whole time, it's exciting, it's fun, but I'm not getting my hopes up. And then when that happened, I was like, I'm diving in. I don't care if there's no water in the pool. I am no longer being cautiously optimistic. I am wildly optimistic. And that's really, and it's something so stupid, but it's what happened. He's wearing that shirt.
Right. So that's May 7th. Then we have a little bit of a gap. I go away on vacation. The Kolosov stuff happens last Thursday. Then May 17th, we get a new round of Michkov chatter. This one comes from a article on the Hockey News where Daniel Briere does an interview with a French language podcast, La Poche Bleue. I don't know. I was in France for a few days, but I don't know how to speak French. Don't worry. Saying that they hope Michkov will be able to come over at some point, and that they haven't talked to him since the draft. The way that the Hockey News positioned this in the article was Cutter Gauthier 2.0. It was extremely irresponsible. I hesitate to even use the word journalism. It was the epitome of sensationalistic, trying to drive clicks from scared Flyers fans. But we'll get into why this matters a bit later. I do think that this speaks to the Flyers maybe having an inkling this might be closer than any of us thought, and very much not wanting to rock the boat. Because, and I made this point on our Discord for PHLY subscribers, I was literally in Barcelona when I did it, because I was occasionally checking Twitter and I was seeing people going bonkers, and I'm like, how do people not see what this is? This was not an interview directed at Flyers fans. This was an interview directed at Russians, at the people who are involved in the decision-making process, and Briere trying to make it clear that we're playing nice. We're hands off. We're not trying to steal your player. Let's just let this continue as it's going. That, to me, in the moment, was exactly how I read it. And then on Sunday, we more or less get confirmation that probably was a big part of it, because on May 19th, yesterday, Sport Express in Russia reports that Michkov will continue his career in Philadelphia, that his SKA rights will be terminated. Today, on May 20th, we get an interview with Roman Rottenberg, the guy who more or less runs SKA. Now, Medvedev is the president. Rottenberg calls shots. He does an interview with a Russian newspaper where, notably, and this is the most important thing, he did not deny that there is momentum here towards terminating the contract. Confirms that nothing's happened yet. Nothing's done, but he was given every opportunity to throw cold water on this and say it's bullshit. Michkov's our guy. And of course that could be a lie, but like the fact that he didn't throw cold water and the fact that he's allowing this narrative to persist, it's important.
And at first I got to jump in. We have a ton of live viewers right now, far more than we typically have. This was to be expected, but I bet a lot of you might be tuning in for the first time. First of all, thank you very much. And I don't do this a ton, but maybe you're enjoying what you're hearing. Maybe you want to make this a part of your regular Flyers content viewing experience. Hit that subscribe button right there on the YouTube page. Set those reminders so you never miss a live show. We're coming to you every day, all off season, during the regular season as well, 5 days a week. This is it's great content right here. And maybe hit the like on this video. I'm told that means something. So hit that little thumbs up,
like
guy.
The algorithm likes it.
Hit that little thumbs up, guy, and I think that will help us a ton. But thank you all so much for joining us. If it's your first time, if you're a regular, we really, really appreciate the turnout today on Monday at 1 o'clock to hear about some Russian hockey rumors.
Late May.
Yeah,
the Flyers have not played a hockey game in over a month.
There's a Game 7 tonight, and this is the only time it's going to get mentioned on today's show. We have talked about the playoffs pretty consistently. Today ain't the day. All right, take it back, Chuck.
So that's the timeline. We are now up to the present day where technically nothing has happened, but realistically a lot has happened because over the last 3 weeks, this seems to be building towards a logical conclusion. And that logical conclusion, look, I'm not saying that the rug can't be pulled out from under Flyers fans. It happens all the time. But
it's only a few months ago.
There's a lot of momentum here pointing towards one logical conclusion, which is Matvei Michkov's KHL contract, which currently lasts through the end of the 2025-2026 season, being terminated. And then soon after, the Philadelphia Flyers working on signing him to an entry-level contract and working on getting him over to North America as soon as next season. So, Bill, I want to, before I get into, and one thing I want to make clear, the Flyers are trying very hard to stay radio silent here. They are very purposely staying out of this. They see it goes back to that old Napoleon quote where it's like when your enemy's making a mistake, like shut up, just like let him do it. I'm not saying that Scott's making a mistake here because there's a lot of play, but when things are going your way, you don't need to inject yourself into it. You can just let things go as they're going and benefit from what happens. The Flyers are trying to stay out of this, at least publicly, at least in terms of what they release, because this is going in their direction anyway. But before I get into kind of what I've heard, where things are, Bill, where's your head at right now?
My head, it's spinning. Honestly, it's freaking spinning. I'm just so excited. You've heard me say on this show a few times, like, listen, and we've said before, if we were running things, this rebuild would probably look a lot different. But since they've taken the path that they've taken, where they're going to try to play meaningful games and teach the players that they do have how to, you're going to learn to win, basically. I'm not saying it's the right or wrong path, but it's the path they're taking. But from just a fan perspective, I'm sitting here like, all right, we just did that. We just did that season, and it was
the culture building year.
The culture building season. We saw some young guys take steps. We're going to see them hopefully get more playing time next year and improve. But there's still so much all right, what's kind of the point of next year then? If we're not going to be a top 5 pick, a bottom 5 team, and I expect if everything, prior to this timeline happens,
right,
I'm sitting there like, all right, maybe there's a few subtractions. Maybe they trade Lawton. Maybe they trade Ristolainen. Maybe there's a hockey trade that involves Joel Fett.
Right.
Like, whatever it is, though, it's kind of seems run it backish
going
into next season.
A little bit.
And what from just a viewer, what is the point? What is the point of the 2024-25 season?
We would find stuff to talk about.
We would absolutely find stuff
and
to talk about.
There are a lot of interesting storylines,
Yes.
even setting aside Michkov, like seeing a full year of Jamie Drysdale. You know, there's a lot, because like to me, this season, this upcoming season, I thought the big story of this upcoming season before everything that happened, I thought it was going to be Cutter Gautier's rookie year. Well, obviously that didn't happen. Now it's Jamie Drysdale's first year as a Flyer. Hopefully he comes back from his off-season work. They actually haven't announced a surgery yet, which is interesting. I'll have to do some digging on that now that I'm back, if he actually had to get surgery. But presumably he will be ready for camp, and presumably we will get to see more what he is, because he is the return for Gauthier. But the expectation in my mind was always the earliest we're going to probably see Michkov is a year early.
Yeah.
Now we have a season where we might get him now.
All of a sudden, this season, that kind of, like, again, we'd find stuff to talk about, and with this team, my God, they might trade for McDavid. Who that, you know, they might do some crazy.
Not out of the playoffs yet, Bill.
I'm just saying they might do some crazy shit.
Fair.
But it was like, okay, we're going to find stuff. And now there is an obvious point to this coming year if all of this comes to fruition. And it's far different from what I thought it was. Listen, finding out about Drysdale, finding out about the goalies.
Yeah, the goalies.
Seeing another year of York, seeing another year of Forster. That's all interesting.
Yeah.
The potential superstar guy who's maybe going to be the best player on a team that's competing in a few years, his rookie year, that trumps all that combined.
The interest that will be surrounding the Flyers,
look at our numbers today
in this market, if Matvei Michkov does come over, it's going to be enormous. We talked about it a few weeks ago about how, imagine if he's a development camp in July after the draft. That place is going to be a mob scene.
Voorhees is you're gonna need like a special license there's gonna be police directing traffic outside of the Flyers training center. Not the skates. I got the name now.
You got it right.
But like, there's gonna be police. It's gonna be freaking insane over there.
It'd be wild. Going back to kind of where my head's at. As I said, the Flyers are being very cautious. They are purposely removing themselves from the situation publicly. They are going to let things play out the way they're going to play out. Now, whether they are doing things behind closed doors with some type of representative in the negotiations, truthfully, I don't know. It would not shock me. This is a franchise-altering negotiation. I would be surprised if the Flyers don't have boots on the ground in some form or another in terms of helping to make sure there are no unforeseen bumps in the road. But basically everything I've heard is that the Flyers are pumped. They're really, really excited about this. They don't want to fuck it up. They are watching it with very close attention. They are seeing all the things we are seeing. And I think they are feeling pretty good about where this is going. But they also know that the easiest way to screw this up is for the Flyers to start flexing their muscles and to start being like, we're about to get this great player. And, you know, Scott doesn't know what they have, and he's going to change everything about the organization. Because once they start presenting the public face of, we're about to get this big win, then you start to annoy the people in Russia who need to sign off on this for it to happen.
You're telling me they don't like to lose? There's a thought there that like this American team getting over on us is bad for us. You think maybe there's a little?
It's funny.
Should we be talking about?
Someone actually tweeted at me.
You know what? He's not that good.
Well, somebody actually tweeted at me and they said, you know, it's a little bit not pandering. You're kind of talking down a little bit to Russia, the country, by saying that, you know, well, the Flyers have to tread lightly here. And I think it's a fair point. However, to me, like, I do not think negatively of the Russian people. I think negatively of billionaires. And
Russian oligarchs run the KHL.
Yes, Russian oligarchs run the country.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that make the decisions. And my general view of billionaires is that they are egomaniacs who hate when anyone tries to tell them what they can and cannot do. And what the Flyers need to do in this situation is they need to make sure that they don't piss any of those people off. Because right now, everything they have in terms of the Michkov situation is dependent upon those guys putting their rubber stamp on this. Because Scott does not have to terminate this deal. They are under no obligation. Now, obviously, they can be incentivized financially to make this deal. But if they want to be stubborn and say, no, he signed a contract and he's staying for the entirety of that contract, at least they can do it. There's nothing stopping them from taking the hard line here. And the Flyers realize that. There's a reason why the Flyers, there's a reason why the Fedotov thing, the Ivan Fedotov thing,
I was just going to say,
why it was kept so quiet for so long. And it was because the Flyers were very much involved in that process from start to finish. But the Flyers knew that if stuff started leaking, that there was a risk that all of the powerful people in Russia would say, well, screw you guys. You can't keep your mouth shut, and we're just going to keep him. He's under contract for another year. They played that extremely well. My read, based on everything I've heard, is that the Flyers are trying to do the same thing here and kind of let things progress the way they are going to progress, because it seems like right now they're progressing in a way that is very favorable towards the Flyers.
Momentum going in their direction.
Yes.
Like you said, why be an obstacle in your own success?
Yeah.
Just let it happen. I do want to catch up on some of these super chats. We will get to that. But I just want, you need look no further than the Fedotov situation. Everything appeared to be on the up and up. He signs a contract. He's coming. He's under arrest, and he's now placed in the military.
Yeah.
Crazy shit can happen. We don't know every political issue that goes on over there. We get what we get on the news, and half of our news organizations don't have
I guess
a clue.
my point that I was getting at was it's not that I think low of Russians, is that I think low of obscenely rich people, whether they are Russian or American.
Sure.
I think very low of them.
They're all nuts. Let's look at every single one of them. They're out of their mind.
Yeah.
Let's get some of these super chats. I'll start it with Gary B's up here. He says, it's mad Russian time. Let's fucking go Flyers. That's absolutely right. It is. Go to PHLYlocker.com. Get those last couple of pieces of Mad Russian merch.
We just might have to print out more.
Might have to get some more.
Might have to print up some more.
The stock is getting low, and I know we sold quite a few over the weekend when I put out that link. Now the first one from JH. It says, welcome back, Charlie. What was the thing you did in Europe?
It was the best thing you did in Europe.
Oh, that was the best thing.
I mean, I did a lot of things.
What was the best thing you
did
did
a lot
in
of things in Europe. I don't want to spend too much time talking about my vacation. I will say,
fit him in your luggage is what you did the best thing.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot say anything. No, actually, I'm not going to go into the details of my vacation, but I will say that I went to 3 cities. I went to Rome for a friend's wedding, went to Paris, and went to Barcelona. I love Barcelona. It was a lot of fun. Really fun city, beautiful weather, on the beach, took a cable car. It was a great city. I had a really good time. And I feel refreshed and ready to now dive headfirst into the Matvei Michkov saga, into the looming NHL draft, into the rest of the offseason. We have a lot coming, and I feel completely recharged and ready to go. So thank you very much, JH.
I just keep making myself laugh thinking today was going to be draft prep day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Let's go over the first few prospects. Just okay. No, that's all thrown out the window. Maybe you want a window of your own to throw stuff out. I'm trying here. No, I want to tell you for a quick second about our friends at Mortgage CS. You know, Mortgage CS is the presenting sponsor of this and every episode of PHLY Flyers. And we couldn't be more happy to be in business with Mortgage CS because they're awesome, quite honestly. Listen, I want to talk to you about the rising rates in the housing market right now. Yes, rates are slightly higher, but home prices, they are still rising as well. And Mortgage CS can help you get into a home before they go even higher. And if you're already in one, they can help you refinance to save money when the rates do drop. Who doesn't love that? The same house with a lower payment sounds pretty good to me. Listen, we all know about interest rates right now. But the thing is, if you're in the market for a home, home values are elevated and they're expected to keep rising as well. So it might not make sense for you to keep waiting for interest rates to drop before you buy a home when the price of houses keeps going up. Plus, Mortgage CS, they're a great partner to be working with because Mortgage CS will monitor your refinance opportunities and ensure you save money responsibly when those rates do drop. Refinancing with Mortgage CS is straightforward. You don't want to pay a ton of fees when you refinance, and you'll never get that at Mortgage CS. In the end, You'll be so happy you texted my friend Ben Stucker, the CEO of Mortgage CS. You'll find out for yourself the reason people win more with Mortgage CS. So send that text right now or call Ben at 267-391-7425 to see for yourself. You can also go to mortgagecs.com/PHLY to check them out or to view their 350 plus perfect 5-star reviews. So check out mortgagecs.com today. As I scramble to find the, there it is. Go to mortgagecs.com today to check out, to start your home buying process. That's what I'm trying to say. This advertisement is not a commitment to lend or extend credit. Mortgage CS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker. All loans are subject to credit approval. Certain restrictions may apply. Company NMLS number 1464766. Visit mortgagecs.com for more information. So I want to get to a little bit more of the Flyers' perspective here, and link it to that Danny Briere interview, because my God, we've talked about a certain segment of the fan base that kind of just wants to flip out about anything and everything that could possibly go wrong and treat every negative piece of news as if this is really what's happening here. And like, I'm getting texts, not even from people who are mad, but maybe don't follow this stuff as closely. I mean, like, people in the industry who, the priority for them a lot of times, it's the Eagles and Phillies, you know?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Maybe they know about Matvei Michkov and we need him over from Russia, but they don't know everything that goes into like a KHL buyout and stuff like that. So they see the highlights of this interview with Briere in a French podcast. And like, what do you mean they haven't talked to him? They don't even know if he's ever going to come? Like, so much of it is just kind of playing that game.
Yes.
Like we talked about before the show, Danny Briere, his audience in that interview, it wasn't just Flyers fans, because saying, oh, we hope he's coming over one day. We haven't talked to him. We don't know. Anything could go wrong. That's very scary for a lot of people.
Oh, of course it is.
After just living through the Cutter Gauthier situation, it's like, well, we had these 2 blue chip prospects. We're down to 1, and that was kind of tenuous. Like, there's a reason he fell to 7, and now we have no idea. The thing about fans is, as soon as he shows up, they'll forget all the negative stuff. And right now, they're not worried about selling tickets and jerseys. They're worried about getting this guy.
Exactly.
So they need to play to that audience, whoever in Russia makes the decisions, and Matvei and his team as well. Like, we're not going to make this any harder on you.
Yes.
Because you're negotiating this buyout of your contract.
Yes.
All of a sudden, like, oh, yeah, it's going to be more than we pay you. You're like, because they're pissed. You don't want that to happen and make his transition even harder, where he's like, you know what? I'm staying.
I think the best sign for all of this, and the reason why I was certainly more than willing to cut Danny Briere some strategic slack on that podcast interview, was the fact that they nailed the Fedotov thing. And I said this after the Fedotov thing happened in, was it late March, early April, when that whole thing started to come out, that, look, I'm happy Ivan Fedotov's here. Hopefully he will turn into an above-average NHL goalie. That's great. I'm really happy for him, the person. But I thought low-key the biggest takeaway from that was that this shows that Danny Briere and Keith Jones and the new Flyers organization, the new era of Orange Flyers organization, it shows that they can navigate successfully a very precarious Russian contract situation. If they nailed Fedotov, it gave me a lot of confidence that they could also pull off the much higher stakes Matvei Michkov maneuvering that it was going to take to get him over here. Now, maybe they were just going to have to wait until his contract was up, but it showed that they can navigate those waters. And when I heard, I didn't even hear, I read the article. When I read that Hockey News article, and look, I don't want to shit on everyone at the Hockey News. There are some people that work there still, like Siobhan Nolan, who covers the Flyers, started this year. She does really good work. It's not like everyone there sucks. But there are people that work there that definitely now lean towards the sensationalistic. It is not the same publication it was that we grew up with, where it was like hockey prestige.
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's now owned by Sports Illustrated, and it's a bummer what Sports Illustrated has turned into.
It really is.
Considering what it was when we were kids, and my God, for the 50 years before that.
But that article the way it was positioned as like Cutter Gauthier 2.0, that was trash. And it not only was it clearly clickbait driven trash, it also showed a complete and total lack of understanding of what was actually freaking going on. What was going on in that interview was Danny Briere was trying not to ruffle feathers. I don't know for sure, but I am fairly confident that the idea that the Flyers have had no contact with Matvei Michkov since the draft, I do not think that is true. I think that now whether maybe it is technically true. Maybe they have not actually spoken with him on the phone or met with him in person. That's possible. But at the very least, they've been in contact, I'm sure, with his representation. They have boots on the ground in Russia. Ken Hudakov is a Russian scout. He's there. The idea that they drafted this guy and then we're just like, well, he can just do whatever he wants. He's only the most important person in the fucking organization. That was insane. And when Danny Briere said that, that was the Leo pointing at the TV meme moment for me, where it was like, oh, this interview isn't directed at Flyers fans. This interview is directed at SKA, and it's directed at the Russian oligarchs because they want them to know that, hey, like we're hands off. We're not trying to steal your player. We're doing all the right things here. We're not trying to convince him to leave because they know that if they start to make it seem like they were encroaching in on SKA's territory, that they might blow the whole thing up. And it goes back to something that Medvedev said in his interview on April 30th and something that Rottenberg echoed today. Both of them. Now, these are the execs of SKA, the team that owns Michkov's rights at the moment. They both made it abundantly clear that they think the relationship between the Russian team and the Philadelphia Flyers organization is very good. That's great work on the part of Danny Briere. That this is where all this plays in, is that the Flyers are not overstepping their bounds. They're playing the diplomacy battle very, very well. And the fact that both Medvedev and Rottenberg said, Flyers are great, we have a good relationship with them, like that more than anything explains a lot of the messaging, because the Flyers want to keep that relationship strong so they can actually pull this off.
I'm just like skimming again this Rottenberg interview on Match TV from like today, and going back to the Danny, we haven't talked to him. Like maybe they haven't directly spoken on the phone, and that's what he's saying now because he doesn't speak a ton of English. But like in this article, it's like asked, you have a dialogue with the Flyers. He goes, we have an opportunity to communicate. Like, and he goes on to say, like, we have good communication. We communicate with everyone. We are absolutely open. We invested a lot in Matvei, but we want to support him and his family. Like, he's saying we've talked to the Flyers.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Danny's like, who's to say, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
the family element is interesting to me because you can sort of see, it would not shock me at all if, look, everyone in Russia knows that Matvei Michkov is an incredibly talented player. They know that he's a highly touted prospect in the hockey world. They know that most likely he's going to be a key member of the Russian national team for the next decade plus. Like, even if he goes over and plays in the NHL, it's not like suddenly he's gone from Russia. Yeah. He could be their next Alex Ovechkin, where he's the star of the Russian national team. You know, it very well could happen. So this is a big deal in Russia. And SKA knows that if they're going to let him leave and never really get a chance to use him, because like he played on the team for a few games the last 2 years, and then immediately got loaned to Sochi because Rottenberg didn't want to play him. If they let him leave without ever getting a chance to see him play on their team for a full season, people in Russia are going to be like, did you screw this up? By them saying like, this is a family thing, he really wants to make this decision for his family, that's a way for them in Russia to position it as like, no, this was not that we were greedy and we wanted a buyout. This is not that we didn't think he was that good. It's nothing like that. This is Matvei Michkov, who's had some serious family stuff. Obviously, Michkov's father passed away in the months leading up to the draft under weird circumstances. Regardless of what happened, I'm sure it was extremely crushing for the kid. He's a freaking teenager, just lost his father. It's point. Awful. Yeah. That is legitimate trauma that SKA can point to and say, like, you know, there might be like a report that comes out that basically like his dad's last request was for Michkov to play in the NHL. And that's why he's so driven to do this. And we're the good guys here allowing him to fulfill his dream and, you know, fulfill his promise to his father. Like, to me, that's what it sets up for, where it's a much better sell in the Russian media that, like, we're doing this for the good of this kid who might be the next Russian superstar, rather than, yeah, we just didn't feel like playing him because he can't get along with the coach and whatever. So yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Give us a couple $100,000 and we're good. It strikes me again. This is what I'm talking about, how the momentum seems to be going in the right way. It seems like this is laying the groundwork for the public explanation as to why they made the decision. Now, whether that was actually the reason for the decision, I'm skeptical. We don't know for sure. But you have to present it to the public somehow.
Sure.
And I think the fact that that's already being foreshadowed is notable.
They also sent him to Sochi against his will. Like, it's where his father passed away.
Yeah.
He's like, I really don't want to play there. It kind of sucks for me.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, well, we're sending you back.
Yeah.
It's like,
sorry.
You know.
Sorry, not sorry.
It looks like it's about to be game time for the Flyers, baby, but it's always game time when you get tickets with the Game Time app, because Game Time is the place for last-minute MLB ticket deals with killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. Plus, you know about the flash deals. You can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And there's plenty of events to choose from. While baseball might be the hottest ticket in town right now, we do have the best team in baseball. You can check out so many great shows and games coming to the area with Game Time. Megan Thee Stallion coming on Wednesday to Philly. You have D1 men's lacrosse finals on Monday at the Link. Rolling Stones coming to the Link in June. Pink will be there in August. So much all over the area. You'd be crazy not to check out the Game Time app. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying any tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
I can't wait to use Game Time over the next couple weeks. The one thing I was missing while on that trip was I'm missing so many great Phillies games.
It's been really fun going down to the bank, and you're also the biggest live music guy I know. It's summer concert season, so whatever you want, check out that Game Time app. So now we talk about.
Let's hit the super chat.
Let's hit the super chat.
We got
again.
One from
I see people are hitting us up.
Goal. Better nickname, the Maestro, Maverick, Monster. I feel okay. First off, I'm still partial to the Mad Russian.
The Mad Russian is so funny to me.
Maestro is good, or Maestro, I guess. Is Maverick I don't love just because wasn't Maverick fighting against the Russians in Top Gun?
I believe that's who the
original.
It's a movie made before the 2000s about the U.S. military. So who else would they have been fighting?
Exactly.
I would say it is kind of funny.
I would say out of those, Maestro would be my favorite, but I still am partial to the Mad Russian.
I love the Mad Russian. I mean, we got the shirts and hoodies made, so go buy them, PHLYlocker.com. But it's just such a great moment. One, John Tortorella opening up his mind and kind of letting you know, year one, we were just kind of blocking shots and hoping to get lucky on offense. And this year we opened up the offense. We need to score, but we don't really have, outside of TK and a couple of dudes, guys who can take advantage. But in a few years, we're going to have this kid who's, as you suggested with the nickname, a monster. We need to be able to take advantage of what he does. And he called him the Mad Russian because he forgot his name. Come on. Come on. That is absolutely what happened there. So, Jesus.
I mean, is he just thinking in his head maybe Michkov's good enough to make Rocky Thompson a good power play coach?
You know what? I could just keep Rocky Thompson around, and by the time we get Michkov, it's going to work. Do we have there's another super chat. I can't say that name. That's still that one.
We're good on super chats.
Okay. That's it. Okay, cool.
We're fine.
We are caught up on those.
Now
let's talk about the actual termination project here. There's actually a really good question in the Rottenberg article that we'll get to the rest of this. But it is an interesting question. How come NHL players or NHL teams like we just did with Kolosov, can sign a player to a contract but then loan them to the KHL, but the KHL can't do the same thing. Like, I find that weird. And it was like a pretty good question in that article.
I mean, the reason is, generally speaking, is because you make more money in the NHL.
Okay.
I would think that you could theoretically do it.
You'd be, with the salary cap, because they'd still be playing under that. Okay.
Yeah. So it like
that might be a circumvention issue.
Exactly, because like I don't think Michkov makes enough for it even to be league minimum right now in the NHL. So that is a big part of it. Now, granted, if like, I don't know, if there was a guy making $8 million a year in Russia and they wanted to work out some sort of loan where maybe you could theoretically find a way to make that work under the CBA. That is not the situation, which is a good segue getting into the termination, because if the Flyers were to get Matvei Michkov, if Matvei Michkov does come over and the Flyers sign into an entry-level contract, before that happens, this is what everyone's waiting on, the contract with SKA would have to be terminated, and that is a legal process. Now, that is something that Rottenberg has hinted at a couple times over these last couple of days, that legal details need to be resolved. Presumably, those legal details are the legal termination under Russian law, which I guess is certainly much different than the United States law, but the legal termination of Matvei Michkov's contract, which would need to happen before the Flyers go into signing him to an entry-level contract. That is presumably what is happening right now. That negotiation is taking place. Now, the way this doesn't happen is if the negotiation goes south and that the two sides cannot agree on what is deemed to be fair compensation for the termination of the deal. Now, Hockey News Hub, the great Twitter account, believe Hockey News Hub is basically a Russian who lives in Canada, obviously still very familiar with the Russian language. So he is able to essentially quickly translate any news that comes out of Russia. So he tends to get it first because none of us hockey writers can actually read Russian. He reported that a buyout in terms of USD would cost about $400,000. I do not know if that is true, but he's given good information throughout this whole process, so I see little reason to believe that it isn't true. He's not getting paid a ton. This isn't like we're talking about, in theory,
the Fedotov issue,
an enormous amount of money. However, I would guess that there are probably other people in this process that need to be compensated. Whether that is under the table or above the table, I do not know. But this is not just as simple. Like, for example, it's very easy to buy out a contract in the NHL. There's a set process. There is something, negotiated by the CBA where it's like you get this much amount of money this year and this year and this year. It's an algorithm. It's all easy. You either want to do it or you don't. There's cap charges. Russia is a little bit different in the sense that there are probably a lot of people who want some sort of compensation for allowing Matvei Michkov to terminate his deal and go play over in North America. So while technically I believe that is probably all they have to buy him out of, my guess is there will be other things that have to be done. Now, whether the Flyers are involved in that at all, or whether the Flyers are allowing Michkov's camp to deal with all that, and then, hey, we'll just work out an entry-level contract with you that has a lot of bonuses that you're almost certain to hit, so you can immediately pay that back. I'm not sure. But for this all to work out, the contract does have to be terminated. That will involve some sort of buyout and possibly some sort of other backroom Russian negotiation as well.
There was an exchange, I think, between Hockey News Hub, and Kevin Kurz, where it was like both of them kind of saying there is kind of a guideline, but also literally everything is negotiable.
Right.
And I think there was some speculation on the Fedotov contract termination, like, hey, there's a reason he got that money from the Flyers he got. It's because, like, he had to spend some money to get the hell out of his contract, and has always been my guess. He's probably making about $3 million over, like, $3 million American in Russia, and then he comes, okay, we're going to give him that plus a little bit more. Like, there might have been something to that. Like, one, he was never going to come if he's not going to make more.
Right.
Like, this whole thing's been a whole issue for him, and now, I'm going to go over there and take a huge pay cut. Like, that's fucking stupid.
I'd like to play in the NHL, but I don't want to play in the NHL that much. Uproot my life.
After everything that's happened to me, like, I'm not taking a pay cut. And then also, I gotta make back what I just gave whoever.
I wouldn't be shocked if that was a part of this.
Like, especially
There's a lot of people in this situation that are going to want some compensation for being involved in this.
Rottenberg in the interview talks about, like, and I don't know if he's alluding to, like, I'm going to need to get my beak wet a little here, but he's just saying, like, I've invested a lot of time and personal effort into, like, developing this player.
Yeah.
And
has he, though?
Yeah, well,
I mean, his investment was send him to Sochi because I don't like him.
Well,
just
sure. He's saying it doesn't make it true.
Fair.
But, like, I'm just, there's always, and this is getting back to the Briere of it all. Like, this is why he's just not going to fucking interject.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Any number of people could go, actually, he's not going anywhere. Yeah. So they're just going to kind of play that out. Yeah.
I think the Flyers are playing this as well as they can. We'll see how it works out. It does seem like the momentum is going in their favor, but I think the Flyers are doing everything they can to not inflame the situation. And if this is ultimately the way it works and the Flyers get Matvei Michkov, the Flyers probably were involved in some way, but they're never going to talk about it because why would they? They just won. And also, I mean, they have a good relationship with a big team in Russia, and they would have been able to get this highly touted prospect, a potential generational level prospect, out of there successfully. Hey, maybe in a couple years, they might need to do the same thing for another player that they draft. Like, it behooves them to keep a strong relationship with this team. Now, could this have ultimately gone bad and they would have had to find some sort of way to get him out, and get him on the Flyers by pissing off Ska? Sure, that was always a possibility, but it's always going to be better if you can find a way to do it where everybody's happy.
Yeah, like, all right, we'll get into it. Yeah, we have plenty of time this offseason and in the next few years, but, Zavragin's going to have to come over at some point.
Yeah.
Like, why piss everyone off when it seems as if the Flyers have a better relationship. They're using, like, a lot of capital on Russian players. Maintain that relationship. But
because he's with the Ska organization now.
Is it CSKA or Ska? I never know.
I believe it's Ska because I believe he would have the option to go to Sochi.
It was because we talked that they might be teammates. Yeah.
Exactly. And not only that, a lot of these owners, like, obviously they're competing with each other in the league,
pals,
but they're
though.
pals. They're drinking vodka, up in the fucking. I'm blanking on a mountain range, but like some picturesque mountain range in Russia. They're all just hanging out, smoking cigars and drinking vodka and having the time of their lives being billionaires.
The Flyers are doing everything they can to procure their top prospect. You got to do everything you can for your gut health.
I mean, you're not wrong, Bill.
No, you do. Listen,
I ate a lot of food and drank a lot of alcohol on that trip. Olipop is going to save me over these next few weeks as I go through a cleanse.
Olipop is a tremendous new soda. It's the world's first functional soda with a classic soda taste and the benefits of plant-based fiber, prebiotics, and other botanical ingredients to support gut health. Olipop is a new kind of soda. It's only got 2 to 5 grams of sugar in every can, plus 9 grams of fiber in every can. Listen, 2 out of every 3 Americans say they suffer from digestive issues, and 95% of Americans don't get the daily recommended amount of fiber. Olipop is tackling both these issues with a drink that tastes just like soda. Prebiotic fiber is the food source for the beneficial probiotic bacteria in your gut, and Olipop has 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can that can help support your digestive health. And Olipop is available in 30,000 retailers as well as online. You can get it at drinkolipop.com, Amazon, and the most recent launch at all Wawa stores. They're debuting in Wawa, and they got a couple of flavors available there, the root beer and the strawberry vanilla. Listen, I'll tell you about all the health benefits, but that strawberry vanilla with a little bit of tequila, it's summer, porch season, man. Drink it by the fire, whatever it is. I highly recommend the tequila and strawberry vanilla Olipop. And
Big
right
fan
now,
of the orange squeeze, personally.
The orange squeeze you liked a lot.
Like in the orange squeeze.
It's Frankie, my co-host on Friday, also loves the orange squeeze. He's been a big fan. You can now get your first order of Olipop for 20% off at drinkolipop.com. Just use the promo code PHLY20. The discount only applies to one-time orders, not to subscription orders. Olipop sold online, drinkolipop.com, as well as Amazon, and in over 30,000 retailers nationwide, including Wawa, Target, Sprouts, Wegmans, ShopRite, and GoPuff. Me personally, I take advantage of that 20% off while I can. Go to drinkolipop.com.
All right, we got another quick super chat
got a super chat here
from Dorsal. Let's simplify this. Matvei Michkov. I mean, that'll probably be his hockey name, maybe from the boys. I mean, come on, hockey players.
He's gonna be Matty.
Yeah, Matty. Mitch.
It's the easiest.
Or Mitch.
Yeah, Mitchie. I can see someone going Mitchie. They're not the most creative.
Yeah,
bunch.
it's pretty rare these days when you hear a creative nickname.
And listen, I think like nicknames are best when this is something I talked about a couple days ago. It was like a mailbag question or something. I like when someone's nicknamed the little ball of hate. Like that's interesting, and that would be fun to like put on a shirt or something. But no one has ever tapped their stick going, I'm open, little ball of hate. I'm open. Find me for the one-timer. Like that doesn't happen. So like it's going to be like Matty or something like that.
Yeah. We just need to get back to the 70s when those names were legitimately good.
Yeah.
Hound.
The Hammer. I can say to anyone who's never watched a game of hockey, say Dave the Hammer Schultz. And I bet you could sketch me that guy and describe to me what his job is. Like, that would be very simple. But let's get back to
now we get guys like Phil Kessel where there's full days of people being like, if you saw this guy's picture, what would you guess he did for a living?
Guess he does? Let's get to some of the stuff from Rottenberg today. This interview, little tidbits. The one thing that's interesting about this, like we talked, like he wants to, okay, if he's going to go over, we want to help his family. Family values are super important. Also, if the Flyers aren't using him to his full potential, which is hilarious given they've relegated him to Sochi this past season, they could always just take him back. They could just say, he's come, we're taking him back. Especially if I very much doubt he'd end up in Reading. But if they were to send him to the AHL, they'd go, no. Or even maybe John Tortorella goes, you know what, you're going to sit a few games. You're going to play on the fourth line. There might be an opportunity for them to go, he's coming back to us.
Well, so I think it's less, and this will obviously depend on the nature of
this is a translation we're reading.
That's the way he's going to position it. This will obviously depend on the nature of the negotiation, but my assumption about all this is not like there's going to be an out clause where, hey, you know, like we will send agents over to take Matvei Michkov and toss him into a bus and drive him back over to the airport and send him back to Russia if John Tortorella dares to scratch him for a game. That's not what this is. But what's interesting about this, because what Rottenberg basically said, and this has been rumored / reported for the last couple of days, is that if the contract is terminated, SKA would retain KHL rights to Michkov through the end of when the contract would have lasted. So through 2026, they would essentially retain the rights if Michkov decides I want to go back. They would have exclusive rights to sign him at the KHL level. The interesting part about this for me is, and you hinted at it does give Michkov, assuming this goes down, assuming the contract is terminated, he signs an entry-level deal. It gives Michkov a little bit of leverage with the Flyers because we've seen over the last 2 years that John Tortorella likes to send messages to players. He likes to scratch his captains. He likes to scratch his young guys who he thinks are too offensively oriented. He likes to send
Bobby Brink to the AHL.
He likes to send down his young, talented defensemen because he doesn't feel like they played with enough jam in training camp, even though he's the top defensive prospect in the organization. He likes to do these things because he feels like ultimately it's going to get the most out of the player in the long term. Matvei Michkov, understandably, has been told for pretty much his entire life that he fucking rules. And he is great, and he is going to be awesome because, quite frankly, he does. He is really, really good. The ability to, in theory, go back to Russia and play for SKA, play for a top-tier KHL team, would give Michkov a little bit of leverage over the Flyers in terms of maybe not having the Flyers fuck with him more than say, like what's Cam York going to do? Is he going to quit the Flyers? He going to go play in the BCHL for a year rather than continue to be in the Flyers organization? But if John Tortorella starts Morgan Frosting Matvei Michkov in his rookie year, the Flyers will need to be cognizant of the fact that Michkov could take his ball and go home. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because I personally think that John Tortorella goes too far at times and is too much of a dick to players because he probably has too much power over their future. And in this particular situation, Matvei Michkov is going to have some power. He's not going to have all the power because he wants to play in the NHL. He wants to be a Flyer. Just gives him a little bit more leverage to stop the Flyers and stop John Tortorella in particular, because he tends to be the biggest culprit of really screwing with him in the way that they've screwed with almost every single player on this roster since John Tortorella has taken over as coach. Just saying.
And like we've seen, I mean, whether it's regardless of what you want to believe about the Cutter Gauthier situation, like the Flyers have a very rigid idea about how players should be developed.
They do.
We've talked to Jonesy about this. Like if they had Jamie Drysdale from the beginning, Jamie Drysdale, we might have called him up this year, you know? Like, and he was, 2020, a draft pick? They don't believe he should have been in the NHL when he was in the NHL.
Right.
We heard some thought about what they said to Cutter Gauthier might not have been, you are guaranteed an NHL roster spot day one, no matter what. Like, that might not have been the conversation, you know?
At least it might not have been done as forcefully as Cutter Gauthier
much as
wanted
he wanted
it
to be. He wanted to say he wanted to be guaranteed. We love you so much. You're our number one right wing. You're number one center. Whatever it is, like they did not say that. Would he have played in the AHL? I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it.
But he wanted to be told that, and it doesn't sound like he was. If they're going to play those games, Michkov does kind of have, yeah.
You're gonna fuck?
I can play some games too.
You're gonna fuck with me?
Like,
I can fuck with you right back. And like, I guess my thing is that I don't think that is the worst thing. Now, it could lead to some very precarious situations where we have another week's worth of shows where we can talk about, are the Flyers screwing up the Matvei Michkov situation, in December. But Bill, it's never.
I really don't want to do that.
It's never going to be boring. John Tortorella is the head coach, and the Flyers could potentially have one of the top, most talented, young, very offensively oriented players in hockey. Like, it's going to get weird. Just prepare for it. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But my point is that I think this does give Michkov a little bit of leverage in terms of being able to say, like, okay, like, fine. Yeah, just scratch me for one game. I get it. But, like, if you're going to make this a thing, by the way, I could get on a plane and get the fuck out of here, so maybe stop doing it.
Like, you paid me. My credit card works. I can get up out of here.
And I just think it's notable that Rottenberg is saying these things because, like, it is sending a message to the Flyers that, like, look, if you want him, that's great, but you better friggin' play him, and you better treat him right. And if you don't treat him right, if you play these games that we saw you playing with Sean Couturier and Morgan Frost and every other friggin' player on the team, hey, we're going to take care of our guy. Just saying.
And this is something we talked about on Friday's show. Obviously, you weren't here. There were the Alexei Kolosov rumors that maybe he's a little homesick, having trouble adjusting to North America, whatever it might be. I can always go back. And to me, that sounded like maybe a little bit of message sending more so than an actual desire to leave. Now, these rumors...
I'm skeptical it was even message sending. I think it just might have been a bullshit.
Just might have been totally bullshit. To me, that, like, I have trouble believing someone would just make that. Like, why not just make it up about Michkov? Like, but maybe that's too obvious. I don't know. But, like, you look at a guy like Kolosov's path to the NHL. Last summer, Sam Ersson gets extended. This offseason, Ivan Fedotov contract gets extended. Most teams carry two goalies. When is Kolosov supposed to play in the NHL? Maybe, though, the Flyers are supposed to make some concessions. Like, you know what? We don't want to lose this guy. We did lose Cutter Gauthier. We do have this kind of rigid idea from most players. But if we think you're special, let's guarantee him he's the guy in the AHL. And he's our number 3 goalie. it ain't going to be Cal Peterson.
Yeah.
It ain't going to be a waiver claim.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't be Cal Peterson.
Obviously, it shouldn't be. But, like, who knows? Like, it was Cal Peterson in the AHL playoffs.
No, you're right.
Kolosov played, 2 games at the end of the season and then didn't play in the playoffs.
Which I think was always the plan.
Which is fine if, should they throw him into that situation? I think so, but I also have no idea how to develop talent.
There's a reason why I was, even before Fedotov became an option, I was like, it's insane to bring Kolosov over and throw him into NHL games.
Yeah.
I know fans disagree with me because they just wanted to see the shiny new toy.
Obviously.
But the shiny new toy was all great until the shiny new toy had a bad game, and then suddenly it was the Toy Story tossing Woody into the trash can. I don't want to play with you anymore. Yeah. So but that's just fans.
Maybe you make some concessions for these guys because they do have a little bit of leverage.
You know what? Concessions should be made to Matvei Michkov, okay?
And the guy, Kolosov is one thing. Yeah. Matvei Michkov, the fucking rebuild depends on this guy.
Yes, it does. I mean, look, I'm not saying that the Flyers are screwed forever if Matvei Michkov is just a good NHL player and not a great NHL player.
It's not good.
But it is a huge part of this is the idea that the Flyers need high-end talent, and Matvei Michkov is the guy in the organization with the best chance of becoming that superstar-level high-end talent. And if you have to bend a little bit in terms of your organizational philosophy and tell Matvei Michkov, yes, we might say some things publicly that, like, he's got to earn a spot at camp, but don't worry, dude. You're making the friggin' team. Just, like, don't have the worst camp in existence. Show up in shape, and you're golden. And also, like, look, I'm not going to say that John Tortorella isn't going to coach you hard. He's going to coach you hard. But we can promise you that as long as you are, like, remotely capable of holding up to the NHL pace, you're not going to be scratched. I don't think that is the worst thing, in part, and again, this is my bias, in part because I don't necessarily agree with their entire philosophy of developing players that harshly anyway, but I definitely don't agree with it in the form of trying to develop a young, offensively dynamic star in Matvei Michkov who also has the ability at any moment to decide he's going to take his ball and go home. So I don't hate the fact that they are already making it clear that he's going to have some leverage here because I want the Flyers, and by the Flyers, I fully accept that I don't think John Tortorella is going to change his stripes at this point, but I want Danny Briere, if Briere has to make the choice between letting John Tortorella do whatever the hell he wants and keeping Matvei Michkov happy, I really want him to be prioritizing keeping Matvei Michkov happy because, let's be honest here, Matvei Michkov is 19 years old. John Tortorella is, 67?
Something like that.
One guy's going to be around a lot longer than the other.
Yeah. We're just asking maybe Torts chills a little bit.
Bill, before you get to that, we're staring at a super chat that I don't understand, but I gather you do.
I can't see it. Okay. Bill, it's Doofy, a.k.a. Mr. Kablomi. We did it. We spoke it into existence. The echo chamber worked. It was maybe the Monday you were gone.
Okay.
I was like, so what do we want to talk about? Because I did a Mailbag Monday. And Obi-Wan said, he sent me a tweet, and it was like, I want Michkov speculation. Just rampant, wild speculation. I only want to talk about this, and maybe we can create this echo chamber that ultimately results in, like, speaking it into existence. So thank you very much, Obi. We did it.
1 point for manifestation, I guess.
Yeah, so we did it. Listen, it's going to be almost impossible between now and the time he actually arrives for any of us to chill.
Yeah.
This team
gotta chill sometimes.
This team just really doesn't chill, man. It's May 20th, and we have one of our most listened to shows already. Like, it's freaking ridiculous, this hockey team. That's why sometimes I just need to chill. And there's no better way to chill than with an ice cold Coors Light. So whether you're freaking out about one of the best prospects in hockey, maybe a goaltender, maybe the upcoming draft, let's not forget about that. You need to find the Blue Mountains in your fridge and enjoy a beer as cold as the Rockies. Because when everything surrounding your favorite hockey team is on fire, and when isn't it? Sometimes you just got to chill. When you choose to rise above it all, choose chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Is there anything else that we definitely have to hit on with this today?
I don't think so.
Because there's so much to be talked about with, okay, if he's here, what does that mean for the rebuild? What does that mean for this summer's plan? What does that mean going forward? but that's like the next 20 shows.
Yeah.
You know, is there anything else with this we have to like definitely need to make sure we say today?
Yeah, well, I guess the one thing I am going to say is that, and I know that this is going to be a major topic of conversation over the next few days, maybe the next few weeks. We have no idea how long this is going to last. But the idea of if Michkov comes over, what does that mean for the offseason? I swear to you, we will get to that. However, you have begged me for the better part of 10 years to believe in jinxes. So in this case, I'm going to say, I don't want to jinx it.
Let's not do it until it happens.
Let's not jinx it until we know that Michkov is actually going to be a Philadelphia Flyer this season, because the last thing I feel like dealing with is a bunch of people I mentioned screaming that you had a show talking about what the roster's looking like this year with Michkov, and then it didn't happen. It's all your fault. So you may want it, and you're going to get it if this all goes the way it seems to be trending towards, but we're not there yet. So let's hold off on the roster speculation / what does this mean for the offseason plan until we know for sure that this is going to go the way it seems to be trending towards going.
Well, then on that note, our mailbag question of the day has absolutely nothing to do with Matvei Michkov. Let's close it out with the mailbag question of the day, and it's from our friend south of Kevin. It's from a couple of days ago. He said, or it's from yesterday. There we go. 32 Thoughts is speculating a Kotkaniemi buyout. Potential center depth for the Flyers, possible discussion for the next pod. And yeah, Jesperi Kotkaniemi at only 24. The Hurricanes signed him to that big contract a couple of years ago, has not quite lived up to it. Yeah. And because he's only 24, the buyout is I think it's only 1/3 of the money instead of 2/3 of the money over twice the years.
Yep.
So it's like not nearly as crazy as like a PLD buyout, because the day the season ends, it's like the season could very well end on PLD's birthday and he'll be turning the age. Right. So like if it goes 5, they might be able to buy him out, and if it goes 7, they can't, because it's just like too restrictive.
Gotta love hockey.
But Kotkaniemi at only 24, like it's going to cost the Canes nothing, and they have a lot of their own business to take care of with players who have lived up to expectations for them.
Teravainen, Pesce, Brady Shea. Yeah, they have some guys they need to re-sign.
Maybe Natchez needs a RFA deal or something.
Natchez needs an RFA deal, and he's been rumored to be in the possibility that he could be traded this summer.
So there's a good chance Jesperi Kotkaniemi is bought out. The Flyers need centers.
I don't know
Would
if there's
you be
a good
interested?
chance. I mean, it's
on the table.
I've been away from the hockey world for about a week and a half. I don't know how legit this is. If it was on 32 Thoughts, at least it's being discussed.
It's on the table, and it's just one of those, you have to connect some dots. They need money. This is a way that they save like $20 million if they buy him out.
Right.
It could make a ton of sense for them.
Could.
If they were to, do you think Kotkaniemi as a maybe sort of Ryan Poehling signing, hey, let's give it a chance. Let's give him a 1-year kind of prove it deal, see if he can get back to what he was. Do you think it makes sense for the Flyers as a reclamation project?
Well, I mean, my first instinct is, I would be interested. I don't think he would get a Ryan Poehling contract. He would get more than that. Poehling was, he was a former first-round pick.
More situational, I mean.
Kotkaniemi is a former top 5 pick.
Yeah, it was like 3rd, I think.
And also is coming off a much larger contract. Yeah. He presumably is viewed to have higher offensive upside around the league. The thing with Kotkaniemi is
40 points a couple years ago.
Yeah, he's just not developing as quickly as I think people thought. He had the 40-point year. He regressed this season, down to, I believe, around 30.
I think it was like 25, 28.
Yeah, I'm looking at 27 points in 79 games. So to me, if I'm the Flyers, he's exactly the type of guy I'm looking at. I don't know if I see, 1C upside in him, but the Flyers desperately need center depth.
They have not.
They really don't have much. He's exactly the kind of guy, if I'm the Flyers, I'm poking around. And I'm saying, you know what? Hey, our pitch is that, look at what we did with Poehling last year. John Tortorella has done a good job over the last couple of years of turning guys' careers around. No, seriously. Ristolainen, guys like that. And Kotkaniemi's still young. So, if I'm the Flyers, he's absolutely somebody I call on. I mentioned this before I went away on vacation about how we talked about free agency, and I said, look, there's a possibility that the free agents that I will be most interested in aren't even on the board right now. Because I pointed out how and you saw it during this round. I didn't watch it because I wasn't watching any of the games, but one Matt Duchene, maybe the best free agent signing of last summer, wasn't even known to be a free agent until like 2 days before July 1st because he was a surprise buyout. If somebody like Kotkaniemi is bought out, Flyers certainly could use another center, especially if they're now viewing somebody like Noah Cates more like a wing. We don't know what's going to happen with Scott Lawton. They could certainly use another NHL-ready young center. If you can get somebody like that with upside for nothing more than a 1 or 2 year contract, I think it makes all the sense in the world, but obviously we have to see if it gets bought out in the first place.
Yeah, obviously, there's things have to happen to make it a possibility. If it was like, hey, we're trying to trade Kotkaniemi, it's like, no, I don't want him at that price.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But if he were to be bought out or there's some retention or something, maybe he's a possibility for the Flyers as a reclamation project.
I think he makes a lot of sense for where the Flyers stand, regardless of whether Michkov comes over next year or not. They are still rebuilding.
No, this is just a position of need.
Yeah,
like they just need a guy who can play center. Yeah. Their best center was benched for the final 30 minutes of Game 82.
Yeah. I mean,
like,
they don't
have any centers.
I look at Kotkaniemi as a guy who, his upside, and again, the fact that he hasn't reached it yet cuts down on the likelihood that he will ever get there. But his upside to me is something like a 60-point-a-year two-way center who drives play. And the Flyers could certainly use one of those in their middle six.
Could always use one of those.
Yeah.
All right. That is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for hanging out. And thank you to our sponsor, our presenting sponsor, Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. That's right. Every day, Monday to Friday, pretty much all summer, we're going to be here at 1 p.m. So set those reminders. Never miss a live show. Also, follow us on Twitter, PHLY Flyers, and follow us. Follow the podcast, PHLY Flyers, wherever you get those. Did I say Twitter? _PHLY _Flyers. That's it. All right. My name is Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. You have a great week, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.